Okay, I'll just cut. All right, so this will be the end of the video. I'm just gonna cut it, but I'm gonna keep going and then yeah. All right, so bam. All right, we're keeping it going. Genji once again tightened his bow tie and looked outside through a crack in the curtains. Oh fuck. Maybe the rain had died down a tiny bit since the previous night, but it didn't look like the thick rain clouds were planning to let any trace of the morning sun get by. The morning was dim and far from refreshing.
やはり今日いっぱいはやみそうにないか。
お待たせしました、源氏様。
Kanon finished checking his appearance and exited the washroom. Should I put? Okay, so nice. In a normal schedule, it was rare for anyone to have to suffer going straight from a midnight shift to a morning shift. It was a special system for just the 2 days of the family conference. Oh, okay. But then, as long as the typhoon didn't leave today, the relatives' stay on this island would last until tomorrow. Kanon thought that it was best to be prepared for the special schedule to be extended one more day. The two of them left the guest house, opening their umbrellas. The rose garden had been devastated by the wind and rain last night. Even though they had spent several days making it beautiful to welcome the guests, it had only taken one stormy night to ruin it. He sighed. The two headed for the mansion. They were supposed to meet up with Gora and prepare breakfast. Gora, asa gohan. That's breakfast. Gora was such a perfectionist that he would undoubtedly have been up for some time already, and now be in the middle of preparing a breakfast, both exquisite and as elegant as glassware. Oh fuck, he's very precise. They reached the overhang by the entrance to the mansion and folded up their umbrellas. Oh, what we're looking at right now. Right, Genji took from his pocket a bundle of several keys and used it to unlock the front door. There was nothing on Rokkenjima outside the Usurumiya family mansion, so there never used to be a custom of locking up. However, Natsuki had ordered that it be part of their duties to lock up the mansion from around midnight to early morning. And unlocking in the early morning was to be done by the servants who had the morning shift. Since Goda would begin the preparations for breakfast as soon as he woke up, this task was to be undertaken by Genji and Kanon. Silence had fallen in the mansion, giving the impression that the mansion itself was still asleep.
では、朝の仕事を始めよう。
はい。
Fuck. The two of them split up and began opening the curtains throughout the mansion. If the curtains remained closed, the inside of the mansion would be unable to shake off its gloom, as if it hadn't yet managed to escape the previous night. Kanon, following a well-versed procedure, went around the mansion, opening one window after another without having to retrace his steps once. Even with this horrible weather, by opening the curtains, it began to feel just a little bit like morning. While doing that, he passed in front of the kitchen. Even though he hadn't yet smelled anything, his empty stomach started aching in anticipation of the scent of Goda's much bragged about cooking.
おはようございます。
He tried to greet Goda, who he thought would be preparing a meal inside the kitchen, but Goda was nowhere to be seen. The kitchen was darkly lit, and never mind the curtains, the ventilation fan wasn't even spinning. It was still cold in the room, without a hint of a flame, and of course no preparations for breakfast were taking place. Although it must not be allowed to happen, maybe Goda had overslept. Servants are humans too. They can sometimes fail to wake up or something, and be late as a result. What the fuck? Did y'all hear that shit? In the rare case of that happening, it was the virtue of a servant to casually smooth the situation over as to not cause an unsightly scene, and to make sure that their masters never even noticed that such a mistake happened in the first place. Kinda took up the receiver of the phone. of the phone fitted to the wall and dialed the extension number for the room where the servant slept. He couldn't hear that characteristic sound of a dial tone. Kano tried picking up the receiver again, but even so, he couldn't hear the usual dial tone. He tried dialing again, but it had no apparent effect. Could it be that the lightning last night had caused a mechanical fault and broken the internal telephone lines? The equipment in this mansion was all worn out. Cannon fully understood that even the smallest thing could have caused it to break down. Cannon gave up trying to wake him with the phone and dashed off to the room where the servant slept. How long had she slept until? How long has it been since she had awoken and started lazily staring up at the ceiling? That vague sense of awakening was Natsuki's usual morning experience. Her sleep was always light, and she wouldn't have been able to sleep at all without medicine. To Natsuki, sleeping was definitely not a happy thing. When she looked outside, she saw that it was still pouring. If she hadn't sensed a tiny amount of light, she might have mistakenly thought that it was still last night. She herself was one of the hosts, so she mustn't wake up later than her guests. Urging herself on, she raised up her body, which still hadn't completely recovered from yesterday's weariness. While she was inside this room, no one would torment her. Her headache wouldn't get any worse than it already was. This room was her only peaceful space. So when she left, it meant returning to the world of her husband's siblings, probing each other's minds. Then wouldn't it be better to just stay locked up in this room forever? Natsuki smiled bitterly at the fantasy. She was starting to sound like Kinzo. Even though most of the time she would call Kinzo names for staying locked up in his own room and taking no notice of anyone, the truth was that she actually longed to do so herself. Natsuki gave her head a small shake, and her fantasy was replaced by the reawakening of her usual headache. When she reached for the doorknob, trying to leave the room, her hand touched the scorpion charm that she had hung from it before going to sleep that previous night. It was Maria's charm that Jessica had given Natsuki. If she remembered correctly, Jessica had said something about it having the power to repel magic, and that she should hang it from her doorknob. Maybe it was thanks to the charm that at least this room had been protected from her husband's siblings' malice. As she thought this, her mood began to get a little more cheerful.
ジェシカのおかげで少しはゆっくり眠れたということかしら。
Then Natsuki remembered. That's right. Last night I promised Jessica that I would give her a charm of my own in exchange for this one, didn't I? Natsuki opened a drawer from her dresser and took out an antique accessory case that she had treasured ever since she was a child. Inside, there were many small objects that Natsuki had thought were valuable at the time. Amidst those, she pulled out a red pouch. Inside was a small, round mirror, about 10 centimeters across. It looked quite old, but the design on the back of the mirror was very ornate, and it felt like something with historical value. At the very least, it looked much more effective when compared to the other charm, which looked like a plastic scorpion key holder. She heard that this mirror was a spiritual mirror to ward off evil spirits, and she had been given it especially by her grandmother when her grandfather's mementos had been distributed. It has been believed since ancient times that strange power dwelled within mirrors. Most likely, the way they reflect light created a belief that they also deflect misfortune and malice in the same way. Natsuki returned the mirror to its pouch. It would probably be a fitting object to hand over to Jessica. Just as she was placing it in her pocket, the sound of someone knocking on the door suddenly echoed throughout the room.
はい。
おはようございます、奥様。源氏でございます。早朝から申し訳ございません。
今行きます。何事ですか？
No servant had ever come to her this early in the morning, and especially not directly. Maybe something bad had happened. For example, maybe some fatal oversight had been made during the preparations for breakfast, and the household would be put to shame in front of the guests, or something. Natsuki breathed out slowly, as if getting a head start on the troubles she was surely about to be told of. When she opened the door, Genji-san once again said a morning greeting to her while bowing deeply. Natsuki tentatively
お
responded.
はようございます。何かありましたか？
申し訳ございません。昨夜の落雷で電話機器に故障が出たようです。内線電話が不通になっておりますもので、直接のお伺いになってしまったことをお許しください。
内線電話が普通？それは面倒になりましたね。修理は可能ですか？
残念ながら故障箇所がわかりません。後で業者を呼んで修理させたいと思います。
ということは、この台風が過ぎるまでは修理不能ということですか？
Oh, fuck. I'm starting to imagine, bitch. Wait a minute. So right now, a storm, a typhoon is blasting the fucking island to smithereens. Well, not to smithereens, but it's raining heavily. And the fucking telephone lines are out. However, the power isn't completely out because obviously, you know, the shit's up here.
つまり、客人たちの滞在中はずっと普通ということですね。客人たちのお世話に支障は？
出ないよう最善を尽くします。
結構です。粗相のないようよろしく頼みます。
Natsuki let out a small sigh of relief. She had been prepared for the worst, but a telephone breakdown wasn't the kind of trouble she was worried about. But then, even this would probably be enough to spark sarcasm from Eva. Yeah, that bitch always wants to open her fucking mouth. Natsuki gave her head a light shake.
朝食の準備は順調ですか？
それがゴーダの姿が見えません。
Last we heard, he was at the guest house in the crossword puzzle, right?
朝食の支度もまだ行われておらず。
Oh, this bitch is about to break down.
なんですって？
Natsuki was indignant. To her, this was a much bigger problem than the phones not working. And despite that, this piece of information was the part that had been postponed. Why did everything go well most of the time, and then come to something like this when the relatives were missing? We're visiting. Natsuki placed a hand on her forehead and shook her head sharply.
大方朝寝坊でもしているのでしょう。とにかく、誰でもいいから急いで朝食の準備を。
Oh, what the fuck just happened? Natsuki had exited into the hall and turned around for a second to close the door to her room. The unpleasant thing that she saw there silenced her completely. Oh fuck, what the hell? It was an unsettling sight, as if someone had dipped their fingers in a dark red liquid and clawed at the area around the doorknob. As though someone had soaked both their hands in blood and groped at the door and the knob. Is this what that one motherfucker was who commented said? Like someone had wanted to stage something like that and left this mark as an awful prank.
これは何のいたずらですか？悪趣味な。
私も今ここにお伺いして初めて気づきました。後ほど清掃いたします。
大方、趣味の悪い客人の冗談でしょう。不愉快です。実に不愉快です。
Who in the world would pull such a childish and disgusting prank? Natsuki had a pretty good idea, but of course there was no proof. So even if she pushed the issue, I was gonna say tissue, the issue, it would just seem as though she was making a fuss about nothing. On the contrary, it would definitely be better for her to say she hadn't even noticed that such a prank had been played in the first place. Natsuki gave the order to have it cleaned and headed off to the parlor with clacking heels. That's hot, man. Clacking heels. When Natsuki ordered again, when Natsuki and Genji arrived in the parlor, Eva and Hideyoshi were already there.
おはようございます、皆さん。
おはよう、夏日さん。朝食も合田さんが作るっちゅう話やないか。朝から胃袋が大喜びで騒ぎっぱなしなんや。
Oh my god, that's the worst thing this bitch would have heard. Oh, that's the
本
worst.
家の楽しみは食事くらいがせいぜいですものね。
What if Goda is dead?
エヴァさんも朝からご機嫌がよろしいようで何よりです。
Natsuki returned Ava's gaze, which was fiercely competitive even though it was early in the morning, with a weary expression. This bitch always wants to fight. The hell? Then Kanon jogged in. After bowing in apology to the relatives for running inside the mansion, he approached Genji and told him something in a small voice. What the fuck is he gonna say?
カノン、
Uh-oh.
ゴーダはまだ見つからないのですか？
申し訳ございません、奥様。お屋敷内もゲストハウスも回ったのですが、まだ。
一体どこへ行ったというのです。とりあえず今はゴーダより朝食の準備が先決です。至急対応しなさい。
はい。
Make them, I don't know, throw some fucking throw some, you know, them fucking sausages, them pre-made breakfast things in the microwave, them biscuits. Kanon glanced at Genji. It looked like he had something else to report, but needed to ask Genji whether he was the right person to say it. Wait, let me read this again. Kanon glanced at Genji. It looked like he had something else to report, but needed to ask Genji whether he was the right person. Okay. Genji nodded and decided to give the report himself.
奥様、ゴーダだけではありません。旦那様の姿もありません。
主人が？
はい。奥様より先に旦那様に朝食の準備がないことをご報告しようと思い、寝室をお伺いしたのですが、お姿がありませんでした。それから旦那様だけではありません。ルドルフ様ご夫妻とローザ様のお姿もありません。
What? Okay, so Kraus, Rudolph, Kyrie, Rosa. What about Maria?
ゲストハウスにも？屋敷にもですか？
はい。ゲストハウスの部屋にもおられません。
When she had heard that Goda alone was missing, she had thought that the night they might have slept in or was loafing around somewhere. But once she heard that several of the relatives were also missing, she began to start thinking a little more optimistically. Last night's family conference might have continued all night, and in fact might still be going on. Man, it's a long-ass conference, man. It would then be imaginable that they had wanted to cool off their heads after being in that stuffy room, and had all gone off on a group walk through the rain. The part about cooling off their heads really sounded like something Kraus would like to say. Probably Goda had been called to go with them to aid them with something. Goda was not a man who lost track of time. He had to have understood that if he did not return, the preparations for breakfast would be hindered. So perhaps, as much as he'd like to leave, the atmosphere would not permit him to, and the conference was continuing in that manner, even this very moment. Yes, Natsuki thought this to be an extremely persuasive theory. Natsuki remembered the illusion that she had felt that morning, of being sucked into a continuation of the previous night. What? And upon learning that the feeling wasn't just an illusion, she once again let out a deep, weary breath. Because the banquet of the filthy vultures circling around Kinjo's property was still continuing.
大方、庭園のどこか、あるいは海岸の方で相も変わらず遺産の話を繰り返しているのでしょう。とにかく、ゴーダを呼び戻さなくては、いつまでも朝食の準備が整いません。
ってことは何や？兄さんたちの話し合いはまだ続いとるんか？
She had thought she had spoken in a small voice, but Hideyoshi had overheard her and managed to grasp the situation.
兄さんもルドルフもタフね。ローザの場合は若さかしら？
Sorry about that.
私たち、夕べの24時過ぎにはもう眠くてベッドに戻らせてもらったんだけど。確かにあの時点でも、まだ兄さんたちは熱論を交わしてたわ。男って、熱くなると嫌ね。
Natsuki snorted, her face still blank.
カノン、表を探してらっしゃい。ゴーダを見つけたら、すぐに戻って朝食の準備をするよう伝えなさい。
かしこまりました。
夏日姉さん、表とは限らないわよ。お父様の書斎ってことはないかしら？
なるほど。考えられん話やないで。どういう話の流れかはわからんが、お父さんの書斎に場所を移して、お父さんにも混じってもらって議論を続けてるっちゅう可能性は十分あるやろ。
そのような汚らわしい話題を好んで、お父様が書斎へ招き入れることなど考えられません。
あらそう。じゃあ仕方ないわね。源氏さんとカノン君は申し訳ないけど、外を探してきてちょうだい。確かに兄さんなら、頭を冷やすために外を散歩しようなんて言い出しても不思議はないわ。たとえこんな天気でもね。私はお父様の書斎に行ってくるわ。ひょっとするとそこにいるかもしれないしね。
客人であるエヴァさんに、そこまでのご足労はおかけできません。私が行ってきます。朝のご挨拶も兼ねて。
あら、じゃあお願いするわね。でも、朝の挨拶を交わしてくれるかは疑わしいわね。夏日姉さんってお父様とは仲、よろしかったかしら？
仲が良いかは分かりかねますが、後宮家の跡継ぎの妻を許されるだけの信頼を得ていると確信しています。
なら、きっと返事くらいはしてくれるわね。お父様とは朝食くらいご一緒したいの。ぜひ降りてきてくださるよう説得してくれないかしら？私たちはすっかり嫌われちゃってるみたいだけど、そこまで信頼を得ている夏日姉さんの言うことなら聞いてくれそうですもの。そこまで短歌を切ってお父様を説得できず、一人で降りてきちゃったりしたら、信頼を得ているなんて二度と言えないかもね。
自信はありませんが、努力はします。
This bitch is so fucking childish, man. She really is just a fucking cunt. Like everything she just wants to fight for no fucking reason. Natsuki responded, discouraged. However, knowing Kinzo's temperament, she had absolutely no confidence in her ability to bring him out. Ava herself was treating it like a joke, expecting that it couldn't be done. But even so, Natsuki would lose face if she gave up, said it was impossible for her, and let Ava go instead. Eva's mean-spirited and unreasonable demand caused Natsuki's tightly clenched fists to shake. When Genji realized this, he softly spoke to her over her shoulder.
奥様、よろしければこれをお持ちください。
それは？
Genji handed Natsuki a sparkling gold key of ornate design. It was the key to Kinzo's study. The study would always lock itself, and couldn't be unlocked as long as Kinzo forbade entrance. However, since Genji was especially trusted by Kinzo, he was allowed to carry a key to that door.
でもこの鍵を使ったら、あなたも咎めを受けるのではありませんか？
親方様は深くお休みになられている時、それに親方様にお部屋を出ていただくよう説得するには、扉越しでは難しゅうございましょう。ぜひお使いください。
源氏。
Until now, Natsuki had thought of Genji as a cold servant who worked directly under Kinzo and would never work for her. But it looked like she would have to alter her understanding of him. She wanted to communicate her feelings of thanks, but then Genji had already turned his back on her and was walking down the corridor with Kanon. But as Natsuki watched them go, the words that reached her from behind were sneering.
じゃあ、お父様を必ず連れてきてね。息子のかわいい嫁の言うことですもの。きっと聞いてくれるわよ。
Bitch, you her daughter can't even get him to come out. Shut the fuck up. Her daughter, his daughter.
私たちは客人だから、ここでのんびりくつろがせてもらうわ。
予算買えば、口が過ぎるで。すまんが、夏日姉さん、お父さんのことよろしく頼むわ。
Natsuki left without replying, at a swift pace, her heels clacking loudly with every step. After all that excitement the previous night, there was no way anyone was going to wake up soon. George, Aniki, Jessica, and I were snoring loudly on the bed in the cousin's room. But Maria, who didn't join in, and who had gone straight to bed the previous night, suddenly and completely opened her eyes. As she rubbed her sleepy eyes and looked around, the loud snoring coming from the three cousins continued. For a while, Maria had to think about what had happened. After that, she realized that her mother was not with her and quickly got lonely. Maria left the cousin's room, trying to head to the room that had been arranged for her and her mother. Paying no heed to the three who were sleeping soundly, she made a loud slamming sound on the way out. In response, Battler mumbled and rolled over in his sleep, but it wasn't enough to wake him. After a while, Maria returned, once again opening the door with a lively bang. Very considerate of you, Maria. When she had left the room, her face had been sleepy, but after returning, she now looked discontent. After that, she climbed up on Battler's bed, which happened to be the closest, and started yelling and jumping on it like it was a trampoline.
うわ！なんだなんだ！敵襲か！回せ！
After making sure that I was awake, Maria jumped over onto George Aniki's bed and started bouncing on that too. In that manner, the three of us were all greeted with an extremely pleasant awakening.
ありがとう、マリアちゃん。起こしてくれたんだね。僕たちは夕べが遅かったから寝坊しちゃったのを起こしてくれたんだね。でも、もう少しだけ起こし方を優しくしてくれると完璧だったかな。
ジョージ兄さんは本当に大人だよ。尊敬するぜ。
もうすぐ7時なんだな。ま、確かにもう起きてもいい頃だぜ。ローザおばさんが？部屋にいなかったの？もう起きてお屋敷の方に行っちゃったのかな。
Oh my fuck. When she gets upset, she just freaks out. It's never like a calm, or it's either she's calm or she's freaking the fuck out. Maria kept groaning, ooh, and looking unhappy. It seems like she wasn't simply lonely because she couldn't find her mother, but actually unhappy because her mother wasn't in the place she thought she was, and this made her feel like she'd been tricked. If we could have just told her where her mother was, that might have been enough to satisfy her. But unfortunately, as long as we were here, we had no way of finding that out.
どうせ朝食に行くことになるんだし、屋敷の方に行こうぜ。
そうだな。
マリア、一緒に屋敷へ行こうぜ。きっとローザおばさんもそこさ。
おお、ママはお屋敷なら行く。おお。
そうだね。お屋敷に行こうか。多分親たちはもう向こうに行ってるんだよ。
Maria regained her usual composure, as though her earlier temper had never happened. We got dressed, left the room, and headed for the mansion. The door to the study was once again knocked upon. But there was no answer, there never is. He was still sleeping, and she couldn't wake him. If she returned downstairs saying something like that, Ava would be very amused and triumphant. And even aside from the whole Ava issue, there was the problem that yesterday, during this once-a-year family conference, he had stayed locked up all day, still had not come out to greet the guests. Even though he was the head, no, especially because he was the head, he couldn't fail to make an appearance. Could she convince him? Natsuhi readied herself and, using the key that she had borrowed from Genji, opened the door. He's not gonna be there, isn't he? A sweet stench that seemed to eat into her brain poured from the narrow opening she had created. And though she was prepared for it, she couldn't help but grimace. Thinking that he might still be sleeping, Natsuhi entered the room quietly. Oh, he is there. When she did, Kinzo, already awake, was looking down out of the window.
お目覚めでしたか。おはようございます。
どうやって入ったのか。
Kinzo spoke with his back still facing her. Oh fuck. His voice was not harsh, but calm, and Natsuhi was slightly reassured. However, he was at least in a bad mood. Enough that he had ignored the sound of all that knocking even though he had been awake. Natsuhi wasn't able to break the tension.
申し訳ございませんでした。源氏さんにお願いして、書斎の鍵をお借りさせていただきました。
ほう、元気がか。我が友がそれに足ると思ったならば、話を聞かぬわけにもいくまい。して、私に何言おうか。
Oh my god, this is scary!
はい。
Oh, this is scary!
もうじき朝食の準備が整いますが、ぜひお父様にもおいでいただきたく思いまして。
朝食はここでとる。いつものように運ばせるがいい。
しかしお父様、年に一度の親族会議です。せめてお顔をお見せになってください。
下に降りて、私の死後、遺産をどのように食いちぎるのかを決める議論に加われというのか。バカらしい。そのような話は私を抜きで好きに進めるがいい。そしてそれが親族会議だというなら、私がこの部屋を出るほどの価値はない。
Man, this is a fucking hard thing, because I guess he kind of making sense, but howsoever, I don't know, how are these things usually done? Because I have no fucking idea. But I can understand his anger at this.
私は忙しいのだ。構うでない。
With his last words came the threat that any further questions would be useless. Natsuhi realized that adding any further pleas would finally bring his wrath down upon her. It would be annoying to hear Ava sarcastically say that she hadn't been able to convince him after all, but there was nothing more Natsuhi could do.
そうですか。わかりました。みんな残念がるでしょうが、そう伝えます。
Natsuhi decided to give up. Bowing silently, she made to leave the room before Ginzo's spasmodic temper could fire up. I think I said that right. I don't know. As she did, Kinzo called out to her. Compared to the usual Kinzo, this voice was calm and gentle, like it came from another person.
夏日、後ろ宮の家に嫁ぎ、もう随分になるな。
はい。後宮を名乗ることを許されてから、もう随分になります。
前の家が恋しくなることもあるか。
いいえ、嫁ぐとは、成果を捨てることです。私は後宮夏日、帰る家も懐かしむ家も、すべてはこの後宮の家のみです。
It was definitely not an exaggeration. Such was the level of Natsuki's resolve in calling herself an Ushiromiya. That was why she was so sorrowful that, despite all of her effort, it has been fruitless and she was not even accepted by her husband.
クラウスが女で、お前がその夫であったなら。いや、それは言うまい。
それは、どういう意味ですか、お父様。
Natsuki was shocked. If Kinzo's words just now had been meant literally, they would have been more than enough to make up for all she had suffered to that point.
忘れよ。年寄りのざれ言だ。
Ginzo once again faced away from her. He had told her to forget it, but Natsuki couldn't help feeling a warmth in her heart.
お父様、この夏日は血はつながらずともお父様の娘です。後宮家の名誉も栄光も、そしてお父様が残されたものもすべて、この夏日が必ずや守ってみせますから。
I think that's gonna piss him off, but I'm not sure.
お前に片翼のわしをまとう資格はない。しかし、お前の心には確かに片翼のわしが刻まれている。ならばお前は間違いなく我が血族で後宮家の栄光を引き継ぐものだ。お前の衣服にわしがないことを嘲笑う者もいよう。しかしそれに耳を貸すことはない。心にわしを持つ者だけが真の私の血族なのだ。
Wow.
お前を後宮家に迎えられたことを今は光栄に思っている。
That's a very sweet thing for him to say. I think she really needed to hear that. She needed some acceptance from someone to acknowledge her. Without saying anything more, Ginzo remained with his back to Natsuki. However, Natsuki couldn't help but feel something warm well up inside her that she hadn't felt since long ago, when she had been just a child. Natsuki bowed silently to his back and left the room.
あら、ちょうどいいタイミングだったわね。お父様の様子はどう？あんまり遅いから様子を見に来ちゃったのよ。
When Natsuki left the study, she saw Eva climbing the stairs and their eyes met. Eva was smirking unpleasantly, thinking that Natsuki had just left the room. Trudgingly, after failing to convince Ginzo. However, the way Natsuki was now, such a frivolous laugh However, the way Natsuki was now, such a frivolous laugh would not disturb her. She was not permitted to wear the family crest on her clothing, but she was permitted to wear it in her heart. So, she spoke calmly, clearly, and confidently, with the dignity of the one who would protect the glory of the Ushiromiya family.
お父様は親族会議にはおいでにならないそうです。汚らわしい議題に関心はないと仰せです。
とかなんとか言っちゃって。お父様を説得できなかったんなら素直にそう言えばいいじゃない。
哀れですね。お父様が嘆かれるお気持ちも分かろうというものです。
Oh, fuck.
それはどういう意味よ。
Natsuki did not answer. Just as Ginzo had done earlier, she showed Eva her back as she headed down the stairs. Struggling to gather what had happened, Eva could only determine that she had been made fun of and that something had happened to quickly bolster Natsuki's confidence. Even so, She didn't have the courage to risk Ginzo's wrath. Unable to even knock on the door, she could only scratch at the air in front of it, cluck her tongue and follow after Natsuki.
それで兄さんたちはいたの？お父様に聞いたの？
聞きそびれましたが、書斎の中にはいませんでした。お父様が夫たちの下船な話のために入室を許すこともありえませんから、下に降りて使用人たちが探してくれるのを待ちましょう。朝食は遅れますが、お茶でもいかがです、エヴァさん。
別に結構よ。
Ava couldn't hide her confusion over the complete difference in Natsuki's demeanor. She was acting so boldly, and while Ava hated to admit it, she even had a sense of dignity about her. Unable to find fault with anything, she could only follow Natsuki's back to the parlor. When the two of them returned to the parlor, not only Hideyoshi, but the 4 children and Nanjo as well were gathered there. Genji, who had been talking with Hideyoshi, reported the current situation when he noticed that Natsuki had returned.
主人たちはまだ見つからないのですか？
はい。申し訳ございません。あと、熊沢が朝食の準備に入りました。もう少し時間をいただきたいとのことです。
Clock read a little past 8 a.m. 8 o'clock was the time that breakfast was supposed to have started. The mere fact that the host had gone over that time limit was a disgrace under normal circumstances.
今、カノンが表を探しています。それから、シャノンの姿も見えません。
シャノンまで？まったく、主人は何を従えて散歩に出かけたのですか
？How many people couldn't be found? With the number of people having grown so large, it was starting to feel truly unpleasant, as though they were the only ones being left out on something interesting. At the very least, it looked like the children, no, Maria especially, felt the same way. She was indignant. Indignant? You know what? Fuck it. Let me just see what this shit means. I'm so confused. Indignant. That means showing, something you perceive as unfair. Trying to fix her bad mood, the other children were flipping through the channels on the television, trying to find a program that might interest Maria. Nanja was sitting on the sofa, gazing blissfully at the children while reading a book. No doubt it was a book about chess. The sound of footsteps came rushing towards them with a pitter-patter. There was only one set, so they realized before they saw the source that it was not Kraus and the rest, but probably Kanon.
奥様、失礼します。
その様子では見つけられなかったようですね。
申し訳ございません。まだ。
もう十分です。ご苦労をかけました。
She didn't know where they were, but they had to be somewhere on this island. They hadn't put anything in their mouths since last night, so their stomachs must be growling about now. They would surely saunter in any time now. Natsuki was already dumbfounded, and she had begun to think that there was no urgent need to find them right then.
私はお客様方にお茶のご用意をしに厨房へ行きます。二人とも早朝からご苦労様でした。
Natsuki, acting as though the release in tension had caused a new surge in her headache, left the parlor. Kanon tried to call her as she left, but Natsuki departed swiftly.
どうした？まだ何かあるのか？
はい。旦那様方のお姿を見つけることはできませんでしたが、その。
Kanon sounded evasive. He still didn't know where they were, but maybe he had found something with some relation to that. When Eva and Hideyoshi noticed this exchange of words, they came over. They had probably noticed the slightly strange way Kanon was acting.
どうしたんや、カノン君。クラウス兄さんたちは見つかったんか？
実は、バラ庭園の倉庫の様子がおかしいのです。
様子がおかしいというのはどういう意味だ？
それが、何と説明すればいいのか。
Kanon once again hesitated. He wasn't speaking anything like you'd expect from the usually fearless Kanon. Ava and Hideyoshi exchanged quizzical looks at this display.
どういうこと？倉庫の中に兄さんたちがいたんじゃないの？
いえ、中はこれから調べます。その鍵を取りに戻ったところなのですが、
ようわからんが、とにかく中を調べればいいだけの話じゃないか。その倉庫の鍵はどこにあるんや？
使用人室にあります。すぐに中を確かめましょう。
What the fuck are we gonna find in there? I swear to God, if we find every single one of them piled up, dead. Kanon dashed off to the servant room and returned with the key. Genji left the parlor, saying that he would go check, but Eva and Hideyoshi also followed. What was this something odd about the storehouse that had caused the usually fearless Kanon to hesitate? It was still pouring outside, but their curiosity over this something that Kanon couldn't talk about won out. While the children made a big fuss watching television, Kanon and the rest dashed off to the entrance. The Rose Garden storehouse was a place that housed various tools used to manage the garden. Oh, this is the storehouse. It's its own little building? It was definitely not a pretty building, but because of its appearance, it had been built hidden in a corner of the Rose Garden. Okay, it is its own little building. Kanon, Genji, Eva, and Hideyoshi came cutting across the Rose Garden, holding umbrellas. They entered a small patch just off the Rose Garden, which was not used by those simply appreciating the garden, but only by those maintaining it. As they dashed further along it, the front of the storehouse came into view. Oh shit, so it's a big building. It's not like, I thought it was like a small little shed. It was a very old shed of a storehouse, and compared to the flawlessly perfect beauty of the Rose Garden, it was pretty seedy. It was easy to understand why it had been built in a hard-to-see place. Ava and Hideyoshi arrived at the storehouse long after Kanon and Genji.
カノン君たちは早いな。わしは心臓が爆発しそうや。
こんなところに倉庫なんか建ててたのね。何よそれ。
What the fuck? When Eva looked at where Kanon was pointing, she was at a loss for words. Noticing this, Hideyoshi also followed Kanon's finger and was likewise too shocked to speak. The entrance to the storehouse was a kind of shutter. And there, everyone there now understood why Kanon had been unable to find words that could describe what he saw. Let me sit. What the fuck? Hold on, let me sit really fucking tall right now. What the fuck? Oh. Okay, what are we gonna see? On the shutter, which was completely filthy from being exposed to wind and rain for so long. Hold on, let me move this shit back a little bit. Plastered on it, something that looked like a strange dark red liquid. What the fuck? Wait, that kind of reminds me of mucus? Or maybe it was some sticky paint. Some kind of ghastly substance that had been used to draw an indescribably eerie shape. The rain had caused it to drip down in several places, like fresh blood leaking from an open wound. There was no longer any point in being choosy with words. A ghastly dark red substance, meant to look like blood, had been used to draw some kind of figure or mark, intended to suggest something ominous. 2 concentric circles were drawn there, and inside them was a design that looked like a cross. The 4 ends of the cross were widely exaggerated and looked like some kind of crest from somewhere around Europe. Yes, I was gonna say, isn't this what the fucking Nazis used or something like, or something around there? I kind of, it reminds me of some fucking symbol I saw. And in the cracks between these shapes, written closely packed together, were some unfamiliar characters, or possibly symbols.
なんちゅう悪趣味な落書きや。これ、あれか？悪魔の儀式とかの魔法陣いうやつとちゃうか？
With reference to this ghastly shape drawn with a deep red dripping substance, Hideyoshi's comparison was not unreasonable.
これいつ書かれたの？
昨日雨が降り出す前にここに来ましたが、その時には何も書かれてませんでした。
他の方々の目に触れる前に何とかしよう。ご覧になられたらご不快になられると。
そうね、ただの倉庫小屋とはいえ、こんな気持ち悪い落書きを1秒たりとも放置したくないわ。
倉庫の中に塗料もあります。応急処置でとりあえず塗り消して後日天気のいい日に改めて塗装しましょう。
Genji remembered that he had just recently seen another piece of graffiti, and that it too had been made with a strange dark red substance of the same color as this. That must have been. That's right. He had seen it on the door to Natsuki's room!
加納君、さっさとこの落書きを消して戻りましょう。たとえ倉庫とはいえ、実家の落書きは本当に腹立たしいわ。はい、
すぐに済ませますので。
Couldnt squatted in front of the shutter and unlocked it. He then lifted it up with all of his strength. What the fuck were we gonna see in there? A boisterous noise resounded, and the eerie shape drawn on the shutter began to get sucked in through the top of the shutter was raised. At least for the time being, that ominous thing disappeared from their direct gaze, and they all breathed a sigh of relief. Oh, nothing was in it. Thanks to the kids' program they had come across, Maria was feeling much better. Battler and Jessica were making fun of the kids' program at every turn, cackling. George was enjoying the program, along with Maria. Nanjo sat on a sofa by himself, passing the time by reading quietly. They heard hurried footsteps coming from the hallway. They were footsteps from a single person. Did that mean that it wasn't the group of four that had just left? Genji was the one who had returned. It was very rare for Genji, who considered being out of breath a violation of a servant's virtues, to be gasping for air. He had probably come dashing back from outside the mansion. His shoulders were soaking wet, and he didn't have his usual smart appearance. When Genji noticed Nanjo looking at him, he gave a small silent bow and quickly approached him.
Nanjo sensei, 申し訳ございません。至急お越しください。何事ですかな?
As Genji whispered something into Nanjo's ear, Nanjo's face changed color. He stood from the sofa, trying not to be noticed by the children who were still engrossed by the TV, and the two of them rapidly left the parlor, muffling their footsteps. Just as they were leaving the parlor, they came across Natsuki, who was pushing a serving cart loaded with a tea set. Genji whispered something into Natsuki's ear, and Natsuki's face too changed color, shocked. Then, leaving the serving cart where it was, the three of them started dashing towards the entrance. George noticed them running down the rose garden through the window.
なんだろう。源氏さんと南條先生と、あれは夏日おばさんかな。
どうしたんだよ、兄貴。
何かあったのかな。ひどい慌てようだったね。
Jessica and Maria also realized that something had happened from the fact that Eva, Hideyoshi, and Nanjo were nowhere in their seats. And because the serving cart had been abandoned at the entrance to the parlor...
何か事故でもあったとか?
Yeah.
行ってみようぜ。俺たちだけのけ者なんて面白くねえしな。
For some reason, what Battler said sounded extremely indiscreet. But they couldn't deny that they were a little insecure and concerned after seeing the adults run off into the rain, disregarding their appearance.
行ってみようぜ。何があったか気になるぜ。
Jessica's insecure words spoke for all of them.
おい、マリア。お前も来るか？それとも、テレビを見てるか？
おお、マリアはテレビがいい。おお。
僕たちだけで行こう。マリアちゃん、すぐ戻るからね。テレビを見て待ってるんだよ。
Oh fuck, I kind of want one of them to stay with her. By the time the kids went outside, they had lost sight of the adults who had left earlier. But it looked like Jessica had a pretty good idea of where they had gone from the direction they had been running. Following Jessica, they ran through the rain-soaked rose garden. It felt like the wind suddenly got stronger. The malicious sound of thunder began to ring out like it had the previous night. It felt like something eerie had surrounded the island and was trying to stop them from moving forward.
ジェシカ、この先には何があるんだ？
確か園芸道具なんかの倉庫があったはずだぜ。
そんなところに一体何があるんだろうね。
Just as Jessica had said, a storehouse came into view in front of them. They could also see the adults there. The shutter to the storehouse was open, and several of the adults looked as though they were searching for something. For some reason, only Natsuki was outside the storehouse, not even holding an umbrella. She was facing away from them, and it looked like she was hanging her head. The ones who had just left, Genjin, Nanjo, Natsuki, and the ones who had left before them, Ganon, Eva, and Hideyoshi, made this a large gathering of people, but there was absolutely no bustle of activity. When Natsuki realized that the children had come, a terrible expression rose to her face, and she ran at them with her arms spread wide. However, no, because of that, the kids saw the scene when Natsuki was trying to keep them away from. Inside the storehouse, with the shutter wide open, a flickering fluorescent light shone down. And over there, Jessica's piercing shriek rang out. But that was just because Jessica's scream was the loudest. The same thing spilled out of Battler and George's mouth as well. I'm sorry that I hit the shit. Eva just... Oh god, this fucking music! Eva, just like Natsuki, spread her arms and with a terrible expression, roared at the kids.
Georgie!
When Natsuki had spread her arms, one might have thought that she was trying to prevent them from advancing further. However, right now, it wasn't Eva. That wasn't why Eva was spreading her arms. She was trying to hide the terrible scene from the kids. It was a mother's heart, trying to protect the eyes and hearts of children by attempting to block out the view of that terrible scene by at least the width of one of her arms. I had seen this kind of cheap scene all too often. In manga, TV, anime, and movies. I had seen it over and over again. This was just seeing something appear in real life that I have seen plenty of times before in some of those more sensational movies. Wasn't it? That alone shouldn't. But that's too. Isn't that old bastards? Isn't it? I get it. And that's Uncle Kraus. And Curious said, and Auntie Rosa? What?
多分死後6時間以上経過している。損壊部位の状況を見る限り死後に破壊された可能性が高い。
Damage after their fucking deaths?
いや、めったなことは言え。私は町医者だ。検視は専門外だ。
Oh fucking hell! What? All of them were fucking killed? Wait.
ちゅうことはなんや。殺しただけじゃ飽き足らず。さらにこんな無体なことをしたん言うんか。悪魔や。悪魔の所業や。
Holy fuck! Aunt Nati caught Jessica in her arms, and Auntie Ava caught George Aniki. So I was the only one who could approach the entrance to the storehouse. Guys, I'm sorry if I went quiet a little bit. My mouth was fucking to the floor. If only there had been someone here to catch me too. Oh, his fucking dead and Kyrie! I would have been noticed to have. I wouldn't have been needed to have this horrible evil scene burn into my eyes. No, that's not it. I'm standing here not because the people who would catch me aren't here, but because the people who would catch me aren't right there. Wait, what? Just as Jessica said, it did look like a storehouse used to keep gardening tools. A lawnmower and its replacement blades, a grass sickle and a hammer, a saw and some construction tools, piled up potted plants and bags of fertilizer, and treated just the same. The corpses of several people had been laid to rest there. What? No, had been thrown in there. I could tell them by their clothes. That old bastard and Kyrie said, fuck, why'd they have to go? Uncle Kraus and Auntie Rosa. I fucking liked Rosa. Well, even if she did hit Maria, further back, Goda-san. And there's still more of them? How many people died? Fucking hell. I can't even count them on one hand. God fucking damn it. I didn't know whether it had been one of these gardening tools, which, if used for something other than their intended purpose, could definitely be wielded with a naked brutality, or whether some horrible tool had been brought in here specifically for this. Whatever the case, the bodies lying about here, each one of them had been given an atrocious makeover, and fucking Rudolph said that he was gonna die. If he had fucking felt something, then what? Get the fuck out. This isn't a dad makeover. This is more like their faces have been plowed. Their faces were smashed. Smashed? Their faces were smashed. Forced into an expression that a normal person couldn't make after death. I couldn't tell where the eyes or the nose were, but but I couldn't find the mouth. But I could find the mouth because it was gaping wide. The ridges of the teeth exposed. Holy fuck, who the fuck would have so much hate to do something like that after death? But the front teeth were missing, and even the cheek that should have been covered, that was all torn up and exposed. The stylish makeup that he spent way too much time fussing over for a guy is no help at all. I feel so fucking bad for my fucking boy Battler right now. The old bastard that he fucking talked shit about. Oh my god, dude, she was so fucking nice. Oh, I feel fucking sick.
バトラさん、これ以上見てはいかん。こんな姿をお父さんもお母さんもあんたに見せたいわけじゃない。お父さんとお母さんのためにもこれ以上見てはいかん。
死者ってのは安らかに眠る顔ってやつを拝ませてくれるんじゃねえのかよ。
Who the fuck would bash their fucking face in after?
俺の親父とキリエさんの顔がねえんだよ。どういう顔して死んじまったのか、それすらもわかんねえんだよ。
Oh, I feel so fucking terrible.
なんだよ俺は。親父たちのことを思い出すときはこのくちゃくちゃの化け物みてえな顔をいつも思い出せたのかよ。そいつは最高だぜ。クソ親父のニヤニヤとした顔を思い
い出さなくていいんだからよ。最高だぜ、最高だぜ。でもよ、キリエさんの顔くらいが見たの。キリエさんの悪党じゃねえ。たまにはムカつくと思ったけどよ、ちょいとかっこいい俺の姉気分だったお人じゃねえかよ。こりゃねえよ、こんなのってねえよ。クロスおじさんなんかまだマシじゃねえか。顔面じゃなくて側面だぜ。
Wait, Uncle Kraus?
少なくとも顔半分は残ってるじゃねえかよ。
Maybe they got tired.
まだマシだぜ、まだマシだぜ。
Oh my fucking god. Trying to shut out my reckless words, Jessica tried to fill her ears with the sound of her own screaming. How many fucking people?
もうよすんだ、もうよすんだ。兄貴、兄貴。
Fuck. Disregarding age and appearance, I fell to my knees, clinging to Aniki's waist and sobbing. It was as if I was crying on behalf of everyone there. Representing the feelings of everyone there, I screamed over and over. Oh fuck, dude, no fucking. I did like Rudolph. I liked Kyrie. Kraus, I didn't like him too much, but still, that's fucked. Half his fucking face is gone? You have to have that's some cartel level fucking brutality.
倒れているのはクラウスおじさん、ルドルフおじさん、キリエおばさんに。
And Kyrie and Rudolph, they had it the worst. Their faces are.
ローザおばさん、ゴーダさんで。
I legit I'm upset right now, man. Rosa? Goda, he was okay, I'm not too sad about Goda, not too sad. I mean, I don't know if he deserved to die for what he did. But I'm thinking about Rosa, man. I liked her. She was like, oh, no, she did 5 people?
Yeah.
In one fucking night? How?
6人や。
6?
ここにもう一人おる。
No, I swear to God, if it's who I think it is, the body that Hideyoshi was looking down on was hidden in the shadow of a mountain of random No, wait. Was hidden in the shadow of a mountain of random objects in a blind spot to George, who stood by the entrance. So George couldn't tell whose body it was. Therefore, George cursed himself. He cursed that part of himself that imagines the worst and is always right. Me too.
じゃあ、お父さんの足元に倒れているのはシャノンなんだね。
あ
あ。I don't even.
シャノンちゃんや。
George was completely silent. He shook slightly, his lower lip trembling. He wanted to run up to his beloved, screaming and crying. But before rashly running up to her, he mustered up all his strength and asked his father.
シャノンもクラウスおじさんたちと同じなのかな。
Hideyoshi deeply understood the meaning of those words, so he couldn't give George a quick answer. He thought that to George right now, that was the only possible sincere and loving response. When George had asked whether she was the same, he had meant to ask whether her corpse was the same as the others. Since Hideyoshi hadn't denied it, it meant that the body was just as horrible.
シャノンを見てもいいかな。
いや、あかん。
どうして？だって、もう二度とシャノンの顔を見られないんだよ。その、最後の顔、どうして見たらいけないんだよ。
お前が最後にシャノンちゃんに会ったのは昨日か。
I swear if they fucking did her like they did... She was such a... I fucking liked her so much. Last fucking episode, they only did that shit just so they could fuck us this one.
そうか。そのシャノンちゃんは、別れ際にお前にどんな顔を見せたんや。
素敵な、笑顔だったよ。
Oh my god. After receiving the ring, she was bewildered even though her heart should have been decided. Bashful, and so embarrassed to show him that face that she ran away. That expression was revived in George's mind.
そうか。ならシャノンちゃんも、その笑顔をお前に残したいと願うはずや。
I don't even want to think about her, man. I really don't want to think about her right now. I feel so fucking bad for her. Hideyoshi looked down upon Shannon's body, lying at his feet. Just like the other bodies, it was in such a horrible state that it would make anyone want to cover their eyes. What was she the... they're gonna go onto the fucking... Oh my god. I fucking hit the bike. Oh, I'm sorry I hit the fucking bike. I was gonna say they're gonna go into the fucking... I don't even want to know. Half of the face had been smashed off. And no more than half of her expression remained. If that remaining half, soaked red with blood, had been wiped clean, that graceful smiling face might have peeked out. Only half of it. They had to throw in that only half. They had to throw that one in, right? They just had to Without thinking, Hideyoshi slapped his hand over his eyes. How cruel. If only all of it had been crushed. Ah! I don't even... Why did I have to read that? If they were going to... then he might have been able to deceive George's heart for a while by saying that it was just someone... Oh! I don't fucking want to read that. Yeah, they had left... yes, okay, I get it. I don't have to fucking read this shit over again, okay? It caused the body so much humiliation. And also made it clear that this body was none other than... Yes, we have... You don't have to reinforce this again. It caused the body so much humiliation. Okay, oh, sorry. How inhumane, how monstrous. Yes, whoever did this was a fucking sick bastard. There at Hideyoshi's feet, trying his best to burn... Oh my god, how the fuck is Kanan gonna take this shit? The image of the remaining half of Shannon's expression into his eyes was Kanan. Kanan was not crying. Tears had risen to his eyes, but they had not dripped down. But that didn't mean that he wasn't feeling as much sadness as everyone else. Losing Shannon, who had lived with him in the gospel house, whom he had loved as his sister, must have been just the same as losing a blood relative.
ジョージ、シャノンちゃんはきっとありがとう言ってるぞ。お前に恥ずかしいところを見られとうなかったんや。きっとお前が耐えてくれたこと。
わかってる。わかってるよ、父さん。わかってるよ。
George leaned against the outside wall of the storehouse, sinking down powerlessly.
父さん、頼みがあるんだ。
なんや。
僕の代わりに見てほしいんだ。シャノンは指に指輪をつけてるかな？
指輪？ちょいと見てみる。
Oh, fuck. That's so fucking... Oh, they had to fucking illustrate this. They really had to illustrate this. Hideyoshi crouched down. As he did, Kanon silently pointed to one of Shannon's hands.
あるで。こりゃ、ダイヤの指輪や。クズダイヤとちゃう。なかなかの値打ちもんや。
それは、どっちの手の、どの指にあるのかな。
と、左手の薬指や。そっか、シャノンちゃん、婚約しとったんか。
Oh.
ジョージ、
Oh.
あなた、まさか。
エヴァ、今はそんなん関係ないで。シャノンちゃんは男に将来を約束されとったんや。一生を幸せにしちゃると男に言わせたんや。それが誰かは問題とちゃうで。男にそこまで言わしめて、女の本懐やないか。いつこの指輪をもらったんかは知らん。誰が渡したかも知らん。だが、それでも、シャノンちゃんは指輪をもらえたんや。そして、それを受け入れ、左の薬指に通したんや。指輪を送った男もきっと喜んだんとちゃうか？
To most of the people there, Hideyoshi was simply disturbed by this extraordinary situation and was blurting out strange things. But to those who really knew the truth about George and Shannon's relationship, everything he said had made sense.
そっか。ありがとう、父さん。
George stood up. The traces of tears still streaked his face, but his expression had returned to its usual calm.
行こう。バトラー君、ジェシカちゃん。これ以上、僕たちがここにいると。
Oh fuck, I'm so sorry. I skipped that shit on accident.
そうだな。
Jessica sniffled once, and trying to say that she was alright, she showed her face to her mother, who had been holding her the whole time. When she faced George again, she once again had on her usual face, although she still couldn't recover her smile.
バトラー、しっかり。
Oh fucking Battler had it sadly he had it the worst. He fucking both he lost all his family, didn't he? Battler kept on crouching in front of his parents' bodies.
すまねえな。がっつり泣いたら落ち着いたぜ。親父の野郎。普段はクソクソ言ってるくせに。ちょっと死んじまったくらいでピーピー泣くんじゃねえぜって笑って仕方ねえだろ。親が死んだら泣くように遺伝子すり込まれちまってったからよ。
Battler's face was still bright red from the tears, but even though it was forced, he had at least recovered enough to fake a smile.
カノン、お前もこれ以上ここにいてはいけません。子供たちを連れてお屋敷に戻っていなさい。
Natsuki, unable to take a step into the storehouse, had been standing under the rain the whole time. Maybe she had her own way of grieving, different from Battler's. She realized that she had to take on a sense of responsibility now that her husband was dead. So she gave Kanon those orders.
はい。奥様。
Kanon rose silently and returned to face them. His face was pure white, almost as though his own heart had died along with Shannon. There was no life in his expression. If, during the course of a normal day, he had been instructed to do a tour of the beautiful rose garden, Kanon may have led the way for them. But now there was no distinction between Kanon and the children. They were now just kids about the same age, with the wounds of having lost someone close to them. After seeing the children go back, Natsuki gave orders to
源
Genji.
氏、すぐに警察に連絡しなさい。
But the fucking telephone lines are gone!
台風が通り過ぎるまでは来られないでしょうか。どうすればいいか指示を与えてくれるはずです。
わかりました。防災用の無線機がありますので、それで連絡します。
Oh, okay, fuck. When she heard that, Natsuki remembered. That's right, the telephones were out today, weren't they? However, since it had been assumed that there could be trouble with the phones on this isolated island, a radio has been installed. Anyway, let's contact the police and seek their instructions. Everything else can wait.
ナチョ先生、もうこの場はどうしようもありませんか。
Oh,
残念ながら私には何もできませんな。
わかりました。源氏、せめて主人たちの顔を何かで覆ってやることはできませんか。このような姿を晒すことは当人にとっても屈辱的でしょうから。
はい。
Genji picked up several towels hanging inside the storehouse when Eva stopped him in a shrill voice.
ちょっとちょっと、お待ちなさいよ。ここは犯行現場なんでしょ。なら変に手を加えちゃダメよ。私たちは混乱してて現場に土足で踏み入っちゃったけど、それはきっと警察の捜査の邪魔になったわよ。
Natsuki glared at Ava testily. Objectively speaking, Ava was right. Even so, she glared at Eva, as though accusing her of refusing to do those tragic corpses, which had been humiliated even after death, as the simplest kindness of covering their faces. However, Ava had spoken both calmly and correctly. This horrible state was definitely not an accident. It was a crime. Someone had killed them. It was a murder case. In that case, they should be careful not to further disturb the site. They had to aid the police as much as possible so that they might hand over a clue that could be used to find the detestable culprit.
私もエヴァさんに賛成ですな。警察が来るまでここは手つかずにしておくべきです。
奥様、いかがなさいますか。
そうですね。わかりました。ここを閉ざしなさい。それから念のためここに別の施錠をするように。
別の施錠？
ええ。ここに来た時シャッターの鍵は閉じていました。ということはシャッターの鍵を使い犯人が施錠したということです。
確かに通りや。
I'm starting. There was something that I wanted to say not that long ago, like 5 minutes ago, because of Ava. I'll say it at the very end, and this is making me think.
じゃあここを開けた限り犯人の指紋が残ってるんとちゃうんか。
警察に証拠として提出する価値はあるでしょうけど、カノン君が普通に持ってここを開けるのに使用しちゃったわ。多分カノン君の指紋も付着しちゃってるわよ。そしてその鍵はさっき源氏さんに手渡され、源氏さんも素手で受け取ってる。大した証拠にはなりそうにないわね。
それは不用心でした。申し訳ございません。
源氏さん、この倉庫の鍵は他にもあるんか？
いいえ、この一つだけです。
ということは犯人はその鍵を使用人室から持ち出し、そして律儀に元の場所に戻したちゅうことになるな。
The killer walked out of the servant room with that key and returned the key to where they found it. Hideyoshi's theory sounded possible, but that was actually very strange if you thought about it. Why would they go through all the trouble of returning a key they stole? No, if you think about it even more deeply, there are some even more bizarre points. Usually, when a criminal hides a body, they are trying to delay the point at which it will be found and use that time to escape. The actual place where the 6 were killed wasn't necessarily here, but they had been killed somewhere on this island. And it would be, so they wanted them to find it, and it would be normal to think, ow, my throat, that the reason they had been carried to the storehouse was to hide the bodies and delay discovery for the crime. But the graffiti drawn on the shutter that looked like an eerie magic circle had eloquently indicated that the corpses were hidden here. It didn't specifically say that they were here, but after 6 people had gone missing. By making such an obvious scribble and even returning the key to open it, it seemed almost as though someone had wanted the corpse to be discovered here.
とにかく一度は犯人が開け閉めをした施錠だけでは信用できません。犯人の手からもこの場所を保護する意味で施錠を新たにしたいと言っているのです。
いい案だと思います。私も賛成です。
Genji fished around inside the storehouse and unsealed a brand new padlock, which has been inside a small box.
鍵はどうなさいますか？
私が持ちましょう。責任を持って警察に手渡します。
Natsuki took the key to the padlock from Genji's hand. After that, they all exited and lowered the shutter. Because of that, the corpses were once again sealed behind that shutter, covered with that gruesome magic circle. Genji crouched down in front of the shutter to fasten the new padlock. In addition to the main lock of on the shutter, there is sometimes a place where you can attach your own lock in front of it. This was one of those types. In the midst of the roar of thunder and the pouring rain, the storehouse stood there ominously. On its closed shutter was the magic circle, drawn in a creepy blood-like substance and swallowing up the bodies of 6 whole people. To Natsuki, putting the new lock on may have not been entirely to preserve the scene for the police, but rather, she might have felt like she wanted to shut that mouth for all eternity, to prevent any more victims from being swallowed by that eerie demon.
さあ、行きましょう。皆さん、南條先生。ご足労をありがとうございました。現時は急いで警察に連絡を。
戻りましたらすぐに連絡します。
The adults left the storehouse. That ghastly magic circle drawn on the shutter, still swallowing the 6 bodies, loomed eerily, occasionally lit up by the lightning. Wow. Okay. I want to go to tips. I want to go to Epitaph of the Witch, and I want to say something really quick while I'm here. I'm thinking about what Kyrie said. Flip the chessboard. Who would benefit the most from what just happened? Ava? I'm suspecting Ava a little bit. I feel like I feel like the story wants us to suspect her, that she caused all this, when in reality maybe she didn't. The reason I'm thinking this is because they want to be the rightful heir to the fucking, what's it called, to the gold, right, to her father's money, and this coincidentally puts her family and George in the perfect place, because in killing Kraus, he is no longer the successor to the fucking, I was gonna say throne, but to the head family, to the family. And maybe they knew about Shannon and George, their feelings together, and so George, maybe that she doesn't want him or her to be a part of the family. Maybe that will fuck things up for her, so she killed her. And now George, oh yes, George being older than Jessica, maybe that would make him be the next heir to the family instead of Jessica, even though she is directly the daughter of fucking Kraus, right? Who was gonna succeed the throne. It's just I keep thinking about throne, so let's just say throne for now. Succeed the throne. He is no longer gonna succeed the throne, and I'm not sure if he were to die, if Jessica would automatically be the next in line, or if George would be the next in line, even though his parents, Ava, is lesser than Kraus. He was born first and a male. Therefore, maybe that would, again, giving some leeway there, put him above Jessica, inheriting the throne for himself. And Ava seeing that, realizing that had Shannon as well killed, so she wouldn't be there with him. Or maybe if he did marry her, that would complicate things a bit, and maybe he wouldn't be the successor. I don't fucking know. This is again just me thinking, theorizing. Also, while I'm at it, I was thinking about Kanon. Wait a minute, what he said earlier. He said if you get too attached to them and this other shit, maybe she did do that. Cause what the fuck was I gonna say? I was gonna say holy shit. Don't escape my mind right now. Yes, he said we are furniture, and maybe and believe because they just hammer that shit over. We are furniture. They just say that shit all the time. They truly believe that shit. So Ava taking advantage of that. Maybe she ordered the killing because the key was in the fucking what's it called? That shit. The fucking They said that the key to this this little building where they found the bodies was where was in the servants' room. So I mean, I think it's all coming together now. I mean, did I figure it out? Did I figure it out? Maybe this is what they. But again, I'm very I think so. I overthink a lot, so I'm assuming that maybe the story wants me to believe this, when in reality something else happened, and I'm just being misled right now. Also, let me read this shit. The Sweetfish River running through my beloved home of old. You who seek the golden land, follow its path downstream in search of the key. As you travel down, you will see a village. In that village, look for the shore the two speak of. There the key to the golden land sleeps. Oh my. Sacrifice 6. How many people died? Sacrifice the 6 chosen by the key. And we just... Are they meaning literal key? Wait. Are they fucking kidding? No. Wait. Hold on. Grimoire. How the fuck did I forget about Rosa and Goda? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Fucking Rosa. Ugh. She was so pretty. I liked her. It is the first Twilight. Actually, while I'm here, let me look up what Twilight means. Oh my god, the fucking stupid ass movie showed up. I'm not here to watch no fucking dumbass movie. Twilight, word, meaning, not the stupid fucking movie. Twilight, the soft glowing light from the sky when the sun is below the horizon, caused by the refraction and scattering of the sun's rays from the atmosphere. So like very early morning, a period or state of obscurity, ambiguity, or gradual decline. This is fucking, there's a lot of confusion going on right now. So yes, and maybe they meant literal twilight. The soft glowing light from the sky when the sun is below the horizon. And on the first, the first twilight. So you're gonna tell me tomorrow, those who remain shall tear apart the two who are close. The two who are close. So I'm guessing we are the Sweetfish River. Maybe he's talking about just us coming here. Beloved home of old. Downstream, because they mentioned the ocean, the village, the first twilight. Sacrifice the 6 who are chosen by the key. They meant literal fucking key. What are they gonna do with the key? Where do they? Cause Natsuki has the new key, right? That closed the fucking guest house. Not the guest house. The fuck, I can't remember that shit's name. By the key. On the second twilight, those who remain shall tear apart the two who are close. So all of this is gonna happen. On the fourth, gouge the head and kill. By gouge the head, do they mean the head like Ginzo? On the 5th, gouge the chest. I am this poem, it is happening, and I'm pretty sure it is what's gonna happen. On the 9th twilight, the witch revives, and none shall be left alive. On the 10th twilight, the journey ends, and you shall reach the home of the gold. Wow, holy fuck. I saved already, right? I did. Wow. Holy fuck. I'm This is gonna take me so long to edit. I have theories. I have a lot of thoughts running in my mind. Guys, if I can, I'm gonna edit this. As soon as I'm done editing this, I am going, if I can, if there's no disturbance, I'm gonna go immediately back into episode, what would it be, 10? Holy shit. This is fucking crazy!